There's a saying that says in traditional Japanese cuisine, it's not enough for something to taste good, it needs to look good too. Amezaiku is no exception. It resembles fragile glass and looks so real and beautiful that many don't eat it at all. A type of traditional Japanese candy that has been enjoyed by its denizens for over 1,000 years, this unique and elusive craft is quite similar to the art of glass blowing, molding and shaping a medium under intense heat to give life to delectable and spellbinding creations. Available in many major street festivals, you are bound to encounter an Amezaiku artist creating intricate delights as children stare in wonder and awe. The idea of Amezaiku was first conceived during the Heian period, when a candy puller made an offering at the completion of the temple Toji, which was built when the capital was moved from Nara to Kyoto. But what's recognizable as Amezaiku today probably started in the Edo period, where it was known as ame no tori or candy bird, since that was the usual form it took. The technique was actually different in the past. The craftsman put a glob of candy on the end of a hollow reed and blew air into it, similar to the art of glass blowing. The result was a hollow candy, much less intricate than the ones we see today. Techniques grew more complicated over time, and the local lore gives a rather fanciful explanation for how this happened. It is said that the ninja disguised themselves as candy workmen and wandered through the town, collecting information on the techniques that each candy puller used. The talents and secrets of the different pullers were collected, and more complicated technology and designs were gathered, making the candy pulling ever more complicated and beautiful. The craft soon spread throughout the country, eventually reaching a climax and flourishing in the Edo period. This was due largely in part to the widespread availability of its main base ingredient, mitsuame, allowing many street vendors and performances to further spread the enchanting craft. Amezaiku, unlike other candies, is edible entertainment, as much performance as sustenance. In order to make Amezaiku, the craftsman must first prepare the candy base beforehand, which is a boiling pot of sugar syrup made from rice or potato starch called mitsuame. The mixture is kneaded and pulled by hand, then formed into a large ball to be stored until ready to use. At the stall, the candy ball is heated to make it pliable again. Grabbing a glob of the molten mixture and holding it above a small fan, the artist tosses and stretches it like taffy until it reaches the right temperature. He puts their hand into the hot mass, which is around 80 degrees Celsius or 176 degrees Fahrenheit, to pinch up the material necessary. This too is a skill, as the artist must learn to tolerate the painful heat of the medium, as the heat can make the nerves numb and harden the skin. The hot candy is quickly rolled and mounted on a wooden lollipop stick, then pulled, twisted, and clipped into form, usually an animal of some kind and often intricate. The mitsuame is white, so if the creature is meant to be a different color, the artisan adds a drop of coloring, which mixes in as he stretches and kneads. Speed is necessary to the art, since the sculpture must be completed before the candy cools and hardens again. Amezaiku artists can create all sorts of animals, including but not limited to giraffes, dragons, snails, octopi, koalas, wild boar, owls, flamingos, different breeds of dogs, and many more. Shinri Tezuka, who is 27 years old, is one of the few craftsmen that still practice the dwindling art of Amezaiku, keeping the tradition alive in an ever-changing world. He makes goldfish designs as well as frogs, mice, cows, tigers, rabbits, dragons, and snakes. Making these can last anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes, as painting the detailed lines and textured surfaces take time. They are all made by hand, so Tezuka can only make 30 to 50 per day, underscoring the preciousness of each. These are designs that have been motifs in Amezaiku since the Edo period. Tezuka runs a shop called Asakusa Amezaiku Ameshin, one of the few permanent shops that still exist in Japan. He hopes that his elaborate designs will inspire the next generation of candy crafters to keep the art alive. The fact that Amezaiku vendors made their wares on the streets contributed to the decline of the craft in the late 20th century. In the 1970s, health laws prohibited candy from being made in street stands, and also outlawed the old technique of blowing hollow candies because you'd have the craftsman's germs on the inside of it. Making a living as a candy vendor on the street was always hit or miss, but eventually it became impossible. The The remaining artisans hired themselves out for festivals and private events. In 1995, an Amezaiku maker included in a book called Vanishing Japan was said to be the last experienced one in Tokyo. He said that his customers at that point were mostly young women rather than children. Kids were too busy with scheduled activities, but no doubt Amezaiku faced stiff competition from the burgeoning world of TV and video games. All in all, even though Amezaiku vendors are no longer selling their wares on the streets, some artists have expanded globally, using the internet to publicize their art to others. For example, a woman in Nagano has a blog that details her Amezaiku creation process, and she also runs her own company. Takehiro Mizuki, who is another Amezaiku artist, has a website in 3 languages. He makes traditional figures, but can also make modern characters like Pikachu and Winnie the Pooh, and says that he will fly anywhere, already having traveled to the US and Saudi Arabia. With the advent of the technological age, this fading craft will hopefully be able to make a rebound.